Hey, it's Dr. Rowe. Hope you're well. I wanted to talk about a subject which I think for a lot of you that happen to be working with Zoom a lot or in front of audiences or face to face with people, you may already be asking this question, but it is a question actually that's asked a lot. People search on this is understanding facial gestures, micro expressions, and how do I read that? Now, if you were with me just recently on our CWI event, which is an intensive live event online, we called it CWI Virtual. We did a whole section on this, and some of the testimonials that have come off the back of this, people have been blown away by the subtle techniques. And they was like, how can you do that so intimately and so powerfully on Zoom? And we had people into breakout rooms doing this with each other. And it's knowing how to observe somebody and get the right information from the face, but also how do you trigger that informational response from the other person? Because the face, the body, right down to the feet gives so many tells, so many clues as to what is happening in this conversation. And the facial gestures and the micro expressions that the eyes give off, the muscles here, our breathing around our mouth where it tightens, and all the little gestures that happen just around the side of our mouth here. All of those give massive, massive clues as to what is actually happening in that person's mind. What's their emotional reaction? What's their intellectual reaction to what you're saying? So there's three things I'm going to give you here that will certainly start you on that path and get you going. So if I can just pull them up for a minute, just give me a second. Here they come. Right. So I'll actually get this a little bit bigger for you. And you can see, by the way, do you like my reaction there? So everybody's reaction is different. First thing is this. You need to frame up the situation. So are you looking at them on a screen? Are you looking at them on a Zoom call? Are you doing a FaceTime with them on the phone? Are you face-to-face in a meeting with them? Now, the term frame here in the context of what we're talking about is actually how you position their face. So if they're too far back and too removed from you, like a lot of people will even be off screen on Zoom. I know directors of companies that do not come on to a Zoom call, and believe it or not, they will not have their face seen, and they approve other people to do the same thing. Now, you're a director of a company. You're sitting on the board. You're responsible for running the business, being successful, and communicating effectively, and you're not even giving your employees, the people you're working with, maybe your team members, your partners, an opportunity to share their communication in the most open way. We're losing a huge part of the conversation, something like 50 to 60% of the impact of the communication, because we're not seeing that person's face and they're not seeing other people's faces. So, this is a big mistake that people make. You need to get the frame clear. So ideally, you want to be able to get their face, and as you're talking to them, you're looking at their face in the call. So what would happen is you would ask a specific question, and the deeper a question goes, the closer a question gets to the truth of a matter, the more reaction you're going to get from that person. And when I'm demonstrating this live, we had a great example of somebody just recently came on to the live event with us, CWI, and I was asking some random questions, and I picked one question, which I saw a tiny micro expression in his face, twitched a little bit, then he sort of looked up, and then there was a slight frown. All these muscles here give time, even the nostril, the breathing patterns give loads of clues away. And if you know how to interpret those, by initially establishing what their baseline is, and I was showing how people had to do a baseline set of questions first, and then you go in with another question that creates a reaction, you can gauge whether that reaction is a truth, a falsehood, possibly a reaction, a fear-driven response. So the key thing with microexpressions is, first of all, get a clear frame, then start asking some fairly neutral questions, moving into something that's a little bit deeper. And there's certain things I teach people how to do to get to the real nub of the point there. And of course, as I've got there, is you observe their reaction. Do they pull back? Do they frown? Do they get excited? Do their pupils change? Do their eyes tighten? Do their lips tighten? All these things give lots of different clues. And a combination of those things with the body gives us a massive indication of where they're at. And the third thing there is adjust. So the minute you establish that somebody has reacted to a question, whether they're moving into the camera and they're more engaged with you, or they're moving away from the camera, my slight move in the torso gives lots of clues away, by the way. And based on that, you then reframe, you adjust your questions, your conversation, you steer in a different direction, you pull back, you redirect it, or you drill deeper down the rabbit hole, getting to the solution. Now, we had a lot of coaches, for example, on my last event. and this is my specialist area, is going in with interventional coaching in any situation, literally providing a solution. It doesn't matter what the circumstances. I can drill hard enough. I haven't come across a situation where I can't drill hard enough to get to the truth. A lot of people I speak to in business, I'll often just sit and watch, and they don't realize that I'm literally reading what they're thinking. And through that, I'll put a few pointers out. I might ask a few questions, and then I can adjust what I'm saying to bring myself to a conclusion, or to bring the meeting or the situation to a conclusion that's more productive for everybody. So learning to read the face, understand it's very, very powerful. And those of you that may be coming and spending more time with me on the live events that we do with CWI, then you're going to find out more about this. To identify if this is an area you need to work on, I would highly recommend that you take the CWI test if you haven't done so already. Now, what that test does, it helps handpick one of 8 key areas that you probably need to work on. Now, if, for the sake of argument, this came up under a specific area, which is normally on the them side of my system, my communication system, if you get that particular feedback, which is generally around connection or impact, one of those 2 components, that reveals to me that you probably need to do a bit of work in this particular area. But we'll get there further down the line. For now, what I want you to do is start to think about this when you're watching people. Just notice their reaction, and if you get a chance, go take the test if you haven't done so already, because there's great output from that. We'll start to steer you in the right direction. It's Dr. O signing out. Happy observations.